Well, hi everyone, welcome along. Today's video we're going to be looking at different kinds of spear guns that are available, their advantages and disadvantages. With the up and coming spearfishing season, there'll be a lot of people out there with a lot of questions about what sort of spear guns to buy. And I've got a good selection here to choose from, and I'll be talking about which ones are the best and which ones will be the best for new people and for experts. Right, so the first gun I'm going to talk about is the Hawaiian Sling. Now this really isn't a gun in the classic sense because it's a spear. This particular one comes in 3 parts, so you can adjust the length of it. And all that it has on the end here is a rubber sling. They're actually quite effective. You put your thumb through the rubber sling like this, and you cock the spear back in the water, and then when you let go of the spear, the rubber shoots the sling forwards. So they're pretty cool. Comes with a 5-pointed tip like this. I've got a little cap on the end there. These are really good if you're new to the sport and you want to poke around with stuff on the bottom. You can use this sort of as a tool. It's good for spearing flounder and for crabs and those sorts of things. It does have quite a limited range, obviously, because when you cock it back and you let it go, you're still holding on to this end. So it's only got a range of probably a metre from the end of the tip once you cock it back, which is probably about 1.5 metres from your body. So they're kind of fun, but not very effective for shooting larger fish or shooting challenging fish. The major disadvantage of the Hawaiian Sling is that it takes 2 hands. You can load it and hold it in one hand like this, and then kind of, I won't point it at the camera, it's illegal to point a spear gun at another human being, at least in New Zealand anyway. So you can do this and then let it go and it will shoot forward, but it's not as accurate. What I tend to do is use both hands and use it like a bow and arrow like this, and then kind of shoot it through my fingers like that. So they're pretty cool. The fish is only impaled, well, it's impaled on these 5 things here, but there's no flopper on the end, so it can potentially get off. I've missed quite a few with this, and I've had a few get off the end as well. But they're cheap, and they're very compact, and they can be used for lots of different things like flounder spearing. Right, so the second spear gun we're going to talk about today is your classic rubber spear gun. So this is the sort of gun you're going to find in your local dive shop or spear gun shop. It's pretty straightforward really. You've got a spear mounted in the middle of the gun here, and you've got these rubbers, and you place the spear gun on your chest like so, and pull the rubbers back and click them onto the spear. So really it couldn't be simpler. You just aim, point and shoot. One of the major advantages of this over a Hawaiian Sling obviously is that it's one-handed. So when I go spearfishing at least, I dive down to the bottom and I hang on to a rock or a piece of kelp with one hand, and then I have this spear gun in the other hand ready to shoot. And it's a real advantage because if you stay still on the bottom, the fish come right up to you and they're much easier to spear because they see you as another fish. So incidentally, what I would do is I'd take the snorkel out of my mouth and sit there very quietly for as long as I can, and the lack of bubbles and the lack of movement, the fish will come right up to you. The disadvantage of these, they are limited in power to how many rubber bands you have here. It is possible, you'll see there's a hole here, it is possible to put a second rubber on there, essentially doubling the power of the gun. So that's definitely something you can do. You have to have a second notch in the actual spear here to be able to put the rubber onto. The major disadvantage I've found to these guns is I found they are not very accurate. No matter how hard you try, they always seem to shoot basically in a range about this big. So if I'm aiming it at a fish over there, No matter how well I aim it up, it seems to kind of hit anywhere within a circle about that big. So if your fish is sort of this big, you can quite easily miss it. And I found that on a number of occasions, fish that I've had that are perfectly lined up have just totally missed. So I've been very frustrated with the rubber band kind of gun. I've not found them to be very good. They're okay and they're good for beginning, and if this is all you can find, then that'll be enough. But the closer you can get to the fish, the better, because as I said, they're not very accurate. So the next kind of spear gun we're going to look at is the pneumatic gun. So here's a small pneumatic gun. Pneumatic means that it uses compressed air. So this whole cylinder here is filled with air, which is at 20 bar or 285 pounds per square inch, which is quite a lot. And you'll notice there's no rubbers. Instead of rubbers, you use the power of the compressed air, which acts as your spring. And rather than a long, thin spear, you have one of these, quite a short, thick spear. They're very strong, they don't bend, and the spear goes right down inside the gun like this. And it's almost a pistol, really. You just kind of boop, aim and shoot. The advantage of these pneumatic guns is they are incredibly accurate. Whatever you aim at is exactly where it goes every time. So remember with the banded spear gun, I said it shoots in a circle about that big. Well, the pneumatic gun, that circle is probably about that big. Every time I shoot at a fish, I hit it exactly where I'm pointing this at. And because of the little aiming sights at the top here, you can get that absolutely accurate. In contrast to the rubber band gun, you'll notice it doesn't really have any sights. You just kind of aim up the tip of the spear like this, and you shoot from there. Whereas the pneumatic gun, you actually aim it up using the sights. So they are far more accurate. The second advantage is that for their size, they are a lot more powerful. Now let me go into why that's the case. If you take your rubber spear gun like this, you'll see that the rubbers come about halfway down the gun, okay, to about here, and this is where it locks on here. So if I'm to pull that rubber, the rubber extends about that far down the gun. So when I shoot the spear, it starts running out, and then once the rubber gets to there, the spear has exhausted the power of the rubber, and it begins to slow down from that point on. So the effective length of the spear gun is only whatever that is, 30 centimeters. Now let's compare that to the pneumatic gun. In the pneumatic gun, you push the spear all the way down to the end of the gun here, and from this point on, when you release the trigger, the spear is shooting out all the way along at 285 psi the whole way. It doesn't reduce in pressure as it gets near to the end. It stays that same amount of push all the way. So you've got essentially 50 centimeters at 285 psi. So this would be more powerful, even though it's a lot smaller, it's more powerful than the rubber gun because the air provides a more powerful, a more effective form of discharging power. Another advantage of these pneumatic guns is that they are easier to load. So remember with the banded spear gun here, you hold it like this and you pull it towards you. Now, I don't know, maybe you're a lot stronger than I am, but I find it very difficult to load these. I find you really have to pull very hard, and sometimes things can go wrong, your hand can slip off. This little wishbone here can break and cut you as it zaps back, which I had my hands cut open by loading one of these spear guns. Whereas the pneumatic gun, you just put the spear in and you go shoo, and it doesn't get any harder as you pull it down. With a rubber gun, anyone can move it to here, but that last little bit is very hard to load. With the pneumatic gun, it's the same pressure all the way down, so once you get it to move, it just shoo, goes in really easy. So I find these a lot easier to load, especially the small one. So I think that's a major advantage. Right, so the last spear gun I'm going to talk about today is the large pneumatic gun. Now this is the biggest one that I've got. This is the biggest, well, you can't get these in New Zealand. I had to import this from Italy. but this is your Cressy 1 metre pneumatic gun, and again you fill the pressure up to 285 psi. You have a harpoon and you load it in there and you are ready to go. The advantage of this one over the small one is that it has about double the range. So you've got the same amount of pressure, but it's exerting that pressure for double the amount of length double the length of the smaller one. So not only is it pushing at double the power, but it's also twice as close to the fish. So once the spear is cocked in there, it's 2 meters long as opposed to this, which would be 1 meter long. So when the spear leaves the gun, the first point where it starts slowing down, it's already 2 meters away from your hand. If I'm to hold it like this, the end of the spear, 2 meters away. So the effective range of this is about 5 to 6 meters, which is quite a lot, compared to this one, which is about 2.5 to 3 meters. So this is excellent for in and around the kelp, or close to rocks. You can just use it like a pistol, boom. And this one here is better for out in the ocean if you're trying to shoot more pelagic fish, or if you've got pesky butterfish that tend to keep their distance from you. You can shoot fish at a very long range with this one. And again, because the spear is inside the middle of the gun, it's extremely accurate. So whatever you point it at, you've shot it, even if it's 5 or 6 meters away, which is very cool. Alright, so I've talked about the advantages and disadvantages of each kind of gun. Basically, the longer the gun that you have, the longer the range, and you can get a rubber gun that has a better sort of loading system than this. You've got roller guns and rail guns, and some have more power and some have more accuracy. But if you look up the history of spear guns, you'll find that these used to be popular, sort of in the 40s and 50s, and then someone came along and they invented the pneumatic gun. It does have a number of advantages over a rubber gun. It's far more powerful and vastly more accurate. It's a lot easier to use for the size. You just point and shoot, and it's easier to load. So for those reasons, pneumatic guns are significantly better than rubber guns. The problem is they're quite hard to find. The problem really is that they are sort of well engineered. You have to have a company that knows what they're doing, has been manufacturing them for quite a few years, because there's some pretty delicate parts in there. Whereas the rubber gun, anyone can make one of these. You can pretty much make it yourself if you've got the rubbers and the spear and you know what you're doing. So these you can buy anywhere. You can buy these at your local shop. The pneumatic gun can be a little bit more difficult to find. As I said, this one here, you can't even buy these in New Zealand. This I had to import from Italy. So it can be very difficult to find a pneumatic gun, but they are way better if you can. In fact, often they're cheaper as well. For some reason, these rubber spear guns, even though they're easier to make, the price of them has kept going up and up and up, whereas the price of pneumatic guns has stayed about the same. So I definitely recommend that you have a look into getting a small pneumatic gun, or a larger one if you're doing mostly pelagic fish. If you can't find one, then try and get one of these that suitable to your needs. If you're just shooting close to yourself around kelp and rocks, you want a short one. If you're out in the sea, you want a very long one. But again, remember that they can be quite inaccurate. Right, so that's about it. The last point I'd like to make is when you're looking at spear guns, don't worry about the price. Sometimes the price can be very misleading. Sometimes you can get these rubber guns that will actually be very expensive, but they're not actually any better for some reason. You want to get a quality pneumatic gun. Cressy is a very good brand. You can look on the internet, you can get them on eBay or Amazon. There's a very good website called subproof.com where you can order things in. That's where I got this one in from. It just came in from Spain, and it's an Italian-made spear gun. So thanks for watching. I hope that you've got a bit out of this. I hope if you are new to spearfishing, that gives you a little bit of a heads up about what sort of spear guns to use. We're very lucky this year. The fish have come in early. Last year there weren't any fish around until about late January, February, but the sea's already full of fish this year. So good luck out there and happy spearfishing. Bye.